Husband gave me this gift on Mother's Day, so I decided to serve him divorce papers on Father's Day. The necklace was a slap in the face, a gaudy trinket that screamed dollar store clearance, wrapped in a box that might have been recycled from last Christmas. Laura stared at it, her hands trembling, as Tom grinned across the breakfast table, expecting applause for his Mother's Day effort. She wanted to laugh, cry, or maybe hurl the damn thing at his head, but instead, she just sat there, her silence louder than any scream. This wasn't just about a cheap gift. It was the culmination of years of neglect, of being unseen, of being the woman who held their family together while Tom coasted through life like it was his personal vacation. Laura had spent 16 years raising their two kids, managing the house, and working part-time as a nurse, all while Tom's contributions dwindled to paychecks and occasional grunts of acknowledgement. The necklace wasn't a gift, it was a symbol of how little he thought of her, and that morning, as their children, Mia and Ethan, watched with wide eyes from the kitchen doorway, Laura made a decision. Father's Day would be her turn to deliver a gift, one that would shake Tom's world to its core. Laura hadn't always been this angry. When they met in college, Tom was charming, ambitious, the kind of guy who'd write her poetry and stay up all night talking about their dreams. They wanted a big family, a cozy home, maybe a dog or two, but somewhere along the way, life or maybe just Tom changed. He got the promotion he wanted, the corner office, the fancy car, but with every step up, he stepped further away from her. Date nights became too expensive, anniversaries were forgotten, and her birthdays a card if she was lucky. Laura kept telling herself it was temporary, that he was stressed, that he'd come back to her. She poured herself into Mia and Ethan, making sure they had homemade lunches, soccer practices, and bedtime stories, even when exhaustion made her bones ache. She was the glue, the one who remembered doctor's appointments and parent-teacher conferences, while Tom's role shrank to nodding at the dinner table and scrolling through his phone. Mother's Day had always been her one day, the one time she let herself hope for a gesture, something to show she wasn't invisible. Last year, it was a coffee mug with "World's Okayest Mom" printed on it, which stung but at least made her laugh. This year, though, the necklace was different. It wasn't just cheap, it was thoughtless, a last-minute grab from a gas station or worse. When she opened the box, Tom's grin faltered for a split second, like he knew it was a miss but expected her to play along. "You like it, right?" he'd said, his voice carrying that infuriating mix of confidence and indifference. Mia, 11, and Ethan, 8, clapped politely, but their eyes darted to Laura, waiting for her reaction. She forced a smile, said, "It's unique," and tucked the box under a napkin, her heart sinking into a familiar pit of disappointment. But this time, something snapped. She wasn't going to keep swallowing her hurt. Not anymore. The weeks that followed were a slow burn. Laura started noticing things she'd ignored for years. Tom's late nights at the office that smelled like whiskey, not work, the way he'd dismiss her suggestions about their finances or the kids' schedules, the casual way he'd say, "You're overreacting," whenever she tried to talk about how lonely she felt. She began to see the necklace not as a single failure, but as a mirror reflecting their entire marriage. She'd given everything: her career, her dreams, her energy, and what did she get? A piece of junk that cost less than his daily coffee. She started planning, quietly, meticulously. She met with a divorce lawyer during her lunch breaks, hiding the paperwork in a locked drawer. She talked to her sister, who urged her to leave but warned her about the fallout. The kids. "Laura," she'd said, "how will you explain it to them?" That question haunted her, but so did the thought of staying in a marriage that made her feel like a ghost. Father's Day was 6 weeks away, and Laura decided it would be her moment. The irony wasn't lost on her. Tom's gift had been a betrayal of her role as a mother, so she'd serve him divorce papers on the day meant to celebrate his role as a father. She didn't want to be cruel, but she wanted him to feel the weight of his choices, to understand what it meant to be taken for granted. She spent those weeks preparing, not just legally but emotionally. She sat with Mia and Ethan, asking them about their days, their fears, their dreams, trying to gauge how much they sensed the cracks in their family. Mia, sharp and perceptive, asked one night, "Mom, are you and Dad okay?" Laura's heart clenched, but she smiled and said, "We're figuring things out, sweetheart." Ethan, still young enough to believe in simple fixes, hugged her and said, "You're the best mom." Those words kept her awake at night, torn between guilt and resolve. As Father's Day approached, Laura's anger gave way to a strange kind of clarity. She didn't hate Tom, not really. She hated what they'd become, what she let herself become. She'd been so focused on keeping the family together that she'd lost herself, and the necklace was just the final straw. She started imagining a life where she wasn't defined by Tom's indifference, where she could pursue her own dreams again. Maybe go back to school or take the kids on a trip without his approval. But the thought of breaking the news to Mia and Ethan terrified her. Would they blame her? Would they think she was tearing their world apart? She wrote them letters, ones she'd give them years later, explaining why she did it, how love sometimes means letting go of what's broken. The morning of Father's Day, Laura woke up with a knot in her stomach. Tom was downstairs flipping pancakes, playing the part of the good dad for once. Mia and Ethan had made him cards, their crayon scribbles a stark contrast to the cold legal envelope hidden in Laura's purse. They ate breakfast as a family, and for a moment, Laura wavered. Tom laughed at Ethan's joke about superheroes, and Mia beamed when he complimented her drawing. It felt normal, almost good. But then she saw the necklace box, still sitting on the counter where she'd left it, untouched since Mother's Day. The sight of it steeled her. After breakfast, she sent the kids to their rooms with a promise of ice cream later. Tom raised an eyebrow, sensing something was off. "What's up?" he asked, leaning against the counter, casual as ever. Laura took a deep breath and slid the envelope across the table. "Happy Father's Day," she said, her voice steady but laced with years of unspoken pain. Tom's smile faded as he opened it, his eyes scanning the divorce papers. For the first time in years, he looked at her, really looked at her, and she saw something she hadn't expected: fear. "Laura, what is this?" he stammered, his voice cracking. She didn't yell or cry. She just told him the truth. "I've spent years trying to make you see me. Tom, the necklace wasn't the problem. It was the fact that you thought it was enough. I'm done being invisible." He tried to interrupt, to apologize, to promise change, but she held up a hand. "This isn't about you fixing things. It's about me choosing myself." The weeks that followed were chaos. Tom moved out, staying with a friend while they worked out custody and finances. Mia cried herself to sleep some nights, asking why they couldn't just be normal again. Ethan clung to Laura, afraid she'd leave too. She didn't sugarcoat it. She told them she and Tom loved them. But sometimes grown-ups couldn't stay together. She promised they'd always be a family, just a different kind. Slowly, they adjusted. Laura found a new strength, signing up for night classes to finish her nursing degree, something Tom had always dismissed as unnecessary. She took the kids to therapy, sat through their tears, and held them through their anger. And though it broke her heart, she saw them start to heal, to laugh again, to trust that she'd never let them fall. Tom, to his credit, didn't fight the divorce. Maybe it was guilt, or maybe he finally saw what he'd lost. He started showing up for the kids, taking them to soccer games, calling to check in. One day he showed up at Laura's apartment with a real apology, not for the necklace, but for everything. "I didn't know how much I was hurting you," he said, his eyes red. Laura didn't forgive him, not fully, but she listened. She realized then that her anger wasn't just about him, it was about her own silence, her own complicity in letting their marriage erode. She vowed never to lose her voice again. The story doesn't end with a neat bow. Laura's still figuring out who she is outside of being a wife, a mother, a fixer. The kids are still navigating their new normal, and Tom's still learning what it means to be a father without a family under one roof. But there's hope in the mess. Laura looks at her kids, at the life she's building, and feels something she hasn't in years: pride. She's not invisible anymore, not to herself, and not to the world. What do you think? Was Laura right to end her marriage over a gift that symbolized so much more? Or should she have given Tom another chance to change? Share your thoughts on where the line between forgiveness and self-respect lies.